Hey YouTubers, thanks for coming back. We're getting back into the helmets tonight, and we're just going to jump right into what I have in front of me is the Hasbro Black Series Darth Vader helmet, which received an extensive complete repaint job and a lot of customization done to at least bring it to some form of higher end look. This piece was done not completely by myself. My brother Brian did help me do this, so he's credited for a good half of the work, and I actually may be giving this to him, as just a common gift to have, because he really enjoyed working on it, and he didn't really think he had a place for it in his place to set it as a display, because he's not really into the displays like I have, but he would love to have something, and we've talked about it, and he really was not really, just didn't really have the space for it, but that has changed a little bit, and he does have a good place to display it, and I am absolutely proud to bestow it to him, because he was responsible for a lot of the work done to this, which I'll go over here in some detail. But anybody who's been working on these helmets knows, I should say Vader helmets, by now kind of knows what to look for in a real Vader helmet. And while the Black Series helmet is very nice, I mean, for what it is and for the money that it is, it's just, there's so many inaccuracies just baked into the shape and the mold of the helmet, or the whole piece, that it really is not even worth trying to undo them to make it a screen accurate physical build. So what we decided to do was just cosmetically do as much as we could to it, to make it as good as it could look, and I think we really did achieve that. So I'm just going to get in close to a few shots here. Of course, we did the some of the incandescent lighting in here kind of takes away from some of this, but we did the two-tone paint job, and we did intentionally just make everything clean, shiny, glossy, no dents, no scratches, no scrapes, as straight of a paint line as we could do based on the physical mold. The teeth in the cowl are nice and straight, as they would be if this was a real manufactured piece, so forth. The mic tips were originally, although the correct, well, somewhat correct, not quite accurate, but pretty close, design for the Empire Vader, or New Hope and Empire Vader, they were painted silver, and so was the insert of the nose. So we'll get over to that in a minute here. The grilling underneath here and inside the teeth was plastic molded pieces. Of course, a screen mesh from the top of an STP automotive air filter, and cut to the correct shape, solved that issue. And the painted the top mesh behind the teeth black, and left the mesh and the bottom silver or metal color. Oh, forgot to tell you about the tusks and the nose here. They were painted silver, and rather than replacing them or trying to paint over them, just used an automotive hobby chrome foil, which molds really tightly to them. You can, now that you know that's what it is, you can see where the foiling kind of wrapped around it, but it really makes, from any distance further back from here, it really makes a good look, and a good nice metallic real, well, because it's metal foil look to it. And did the same thing with the nose, but really had to work to get the nose foil looking somewhat as good as it could get in the nose, because the surface area of the plastic mold of the nose was giving away the segment that the nose was snapped in place. But, you know, again, going for just an idealized what we could do to make this better. I thought about puttying that in, but honestly, it wasn't really something we just followed through on, given the amount of work that we did in other areas. It seems like an oversight, but it looks fine. I mean, it looks good for what this is, because this really can't be anything more than what we made it to be. Again, the two-tone color is very apparent here. Just used automotive colors. I just went to the automotive store and got some automotive spray paint. Just a standard Rust-Oleum, or I forget what it was, the automotive version, gloss black for the black, and then the gunmetal color, if I can recall, I think was an Audi color, if I recall. I don't remember the actual tone of it or color of it, but it was an automotive gunmetal that looked pretty close to the Vader, and that's all we were going for, just to get the idea down. We were trying to screen accurate this, because again, it's just not going to. Unfortunately, some of the plastic on the rim here was without, you know, without us doing it, had, I don't know where it came from. Maybe that was just the way it was. I don't remember it when I first got this thing. It has a little denting in it, but yeah, that's all right. So yeah, we taped off. Well, I did all the tape masking, and because of the amount of, at the time, I didn't have really a facility set up for the amount of paint work, spray paint work this thing required. So that's one of the reasons I was over at my brother's house, because he had a nice big open area garage and a lot of outdoor ventilation, and so we took this thing over to there and just laid into it. We went through about two, maybe into a third, but definitely two full cans of black spray paint, layer after layer after layer. I think we probably got about 6 layers of spray paint on this. You get a layer down, not too heavy, just a nice misting layer, let it sit for 24 hours, come back, do it again, and do it again, and do it again. I didn't have to do that too much with the gunmetal, because it wasn't as much to have to, the coverage, the gunmetal, just because I guess the metallic material in the paint just kind of, I guess, covers better. I don't know, but it didn't take nearly as much. I think I went through close to a can of it, not much though. But once we get everything apart, you'll see more of that. And you know, kind of colored in. It's not actual the way Vader is, but just a little bit of take a little license and colored in the slots of the bridge of the nose a little bit, just to give some definition. And then you can see the red eyes here, which are replacements. We took the eyepiece out, and and it was, you know, it was okay, but it was a smoke colored, and we wanted this to have that red Vader look to it. So we ended up finding just clear styrene, you know, a thin type of thickness of clear styrene, and we experimented with a few different things. We tried using clear turn signal spray paint on the back of the styrene, and it did achieve what we wanted as far as having the shiny front and then the red color, but it just was, I mean, not that we would wear this as a trooping thing, but you know, you at least want some real functionality out of it if you can. And it looked horrible trying to look through it. You could barely see through the lenses. It just looked bad. And if you're going to display this, you at least want it to look good when you're looking through it. So what we ended up doing is we took the clear styrene, and I don't know how we got away with this without it being a problem. And we found some red plastic tail assembly material and cut it out to shape, thin, not real thick material, just thin material, and cut it out to shape to match the clear styrene, and sandwiched them together by gluing the very outer rims of them, and then used a hair dryer to heat them up to kind of bend them to the shape that we needed them to kind of fit the eye sockets. And you'll see how we applied that when I get the thing apart. So, down here, this piece is just the brace that they give you that you set this thing on to be able to prop it up. That's nothing to really talk about if anybody was noticing that. But yeah, the dome also had, and you can see it if you know that it's there and I tell you about it, but up there, it's very barely visible, was the little mold dimple. I had to kind of fill that in and sand that down a little bit, and it's better than it was. It was, I mean, again, we weren't trying to get glorious with it, but it would have been worse if we didn't do that, and it's just not any worse than any bump or anything else that would have been on the helmet, and it's barely noticeable. If you wouldn't have been told about it, and it's nice and shiny, you would have probably just passed right over it. So yeah, here's just the basic outside look of the thing. And again, if you were just looking at this by itself, it's very representative of Vader. But it's, if you know anything about the Vader helmets, it's very obvious where the inaccuracies are as far as the curved, way long sloping of the mouthpiece and the downward curving of the cheek lines and a lot of other things. But and then how big and flanged out the eye sockets are. And there's a lot, because this was meant for somebody's face to be in it as a more comfortable, wearable thing. Again, I think I heard somebody on one of the forums describe this, not mine, but describing the Black Series helmet, and having done what I did to mine, it just makes it more apparent that if you were to take Vader out of the Clone Wars cartoon and into a real environment, this is probably what he'd look like, something like this. So a cartooned, idealized Vader is more what this is, and I agree with that. So it's kind of cool, but we wanted everything to be, nice and shiny and clean and pristine and what have you. So now what the Black Series was going for with the look of this was clearly Return of the Jedi mostly inspired, but Revenge of the Sith as we get into the inside of it, because you'll see a lot of the details that are in there that were never visible until Revenge of the Sith. So a lot of the details in the painting and the whatever that we did inside took a lot of note from screen references on Revenge of the Sith. And the cool part is that this also being the electronic way, the electronic device, the little push button here will trigger the different Vader sounds. So in full complete headgear, the trigger of the sounds is just your normal Vader breathing, if I can get that without pushing the helmet too far. Come on. And it just gives like a 4 repeat. And that's pretty cool. And then as you disassemble the helmet, the breathing changes to reflect the disassembly of the helmet. We will see that as we take it apart. And I'm not sure if it'll do it. I forget if it does it with just the dome or the face piece. Hang on one second. I'm going to put you right here. I'm trying to take this off. No, it doesn't do it that way. Okay, so does not make a sound when you take the dome off. So now right away, when that slopes down like that, you've got much more of a New Hope or a New Hope look. But anyway, so I'm going to go ahead and disassemble the dome and leave the headpiece intact in what I'll call stage 2, and we'll talk about that a little bit, and I'll be right back. All right, everybody, thanks for holding, and we're back. So just wanted to leave the inside of the dome open to kind of just give a little look on how it's held together with a plate at the top with a series of magnets. And this helmet uses a lot of magnet solution for keeping things together. See if I can back up off of that a little bit. Yeah, and the dome, as big as it is, still is small by comparison to the real helmet. But you know, in comparison to other like non-replica Vaders, this is a respectable sized piece. It's a pretty big box it comes in. Anyway, so we did not paint the inside of the helmet because it was already a shiny black plastic, and you don't really see that much. But the outside, we did paint, again, like I said, multiple layers. And, you know, up close, you can really see the orange peely kind of texture that you want from that. And we did go over it, you know, and sand it lightly with like 1,000 grit, I think, just very lightly in between the coats, just to kind of take the surface area down. So it took us a week, really, once a day, a little sanding, then a coat of black, gloss black. Then I did forget to mention, we then took another 2 or 3 days of applying just a gloss coat, and sanded down the first layer of the gloss coat, but then the next 2 layers we were able to just get it to go over nice and evenly, and it turned out really, really nice, and like almost reflective. It's, you can kind of see, you know, around. So really, really nice for store-bought automotive paint. It turned out really well. So all right, we're going to put him down over here just to get out of the way. And we're going to bring the helmet up into view without the dome. So here we are. So now the apparent coolness of those red lenses is obvious with the light showing in behind them. Very, you know, very ominous. I mean, I really love how bright red that is. It's so not accurate, but I mean, you know, if you're gonna do it, if you're gonna do an idealized, you know, techno Vader or like a cartoonized Vader, you know, make him red, make him bright red. So then we get up here though to the little greeblies, as we had seen in Return of the Jedi, for the most part, somewhat accurate, not perfect, but they're close. They did a good job on these heat vents as far as the texturing on them, or the sculpting on them. I did not paint them. I taped them off when I did the gunmetal paint, but I did paint over everything else, and then repainted the some of the ends, the brass color ends, and some of the silver color ends on there. And I'm not sure how accurate this was to Return of the Jedi. I couldn't really find clear enough pictures to tell me if I was or wasn't right about it. But up top, where the assembly is, these lines here, I tried painting them silver, and I tried painting this stuff silver, and I mean, I was getting away with it, but it was just, again, it looked like paint, and I wanted this to be somewhat like, you know, hey, Vader's made of metal, right? So I ended up using that same foil that I used for the nose and the tusks, and cut it out very smooth, you know, very as best I could to get it down these lines and down these little lines here, and shaped them around these ends, and then shaped them around this top piece, which the best way I found of getting those black dots in there, I was trying to do things like maybe punch little holes in the foil to make it look like there's holes in there, and it just wasn't working. So this, a little bit of that foil has kind of rubbed off since doing this. I can tell right in that one hole there, but for the most part everything's intact. A black Sharpie marker to the rescue, and just circled them in and painted them in. Done, you know. So yeah, it didn't do too much detailing up top because I didn't know if this was going to be, I wasn't anticipating it being like on display, or how much detail there was. Looking on the Return of the Jedi's shots, I didn't see too much detail anyway, so I'm like, this gets the idea across. We got the metallic components highlighted and so forth, and just continue that around. What is it? Better shot of it. Continue that around to the sides here, down to the bottom to this back piece, which I had repainted the entire back piece black, and then hand painted all the details in silver and brass and copper. I was very surprised how detailed this whole back piece was, the neck piece. And the same thing over here, just hand painted in all the component details and so forth. And just wanted to get a little bit under there to show you where the paint lines were nice and tight on the tusks and the slides. So yeah, this is the mask, and since we have this way, I'm just going to turn it in, and we'll get into the details in the bottom portion here in a second. But I just wanted to lift this up and look through this. This stunned us when we saw this. That was the look when Anakin was getting the helmet put on him. That was that red, and it just, when you hold this up to the light and you're looking through it and everything is that red, it's cool, you know. So yeah, we were both, my brother and I were both really happy with the way that the lenses turned out. And I'll show that to you in a little more detail here when I get the two pieces separated, to be able to show you the inside a little more, and then we'll talk about that. So let me get that done, and I'll be right back. All right, welcome back, everybody. Okay, I lied about saying that I was going to come back and have this apart, because I wanted to go back and show you the additional sound effects that the helmet does in the different stages that it's in. So we heard earlier the breathing, the normal breathing sound when the helmet's together. But when we take the helmet apart, which again isn't really done any more means than having to manually pry these magnets off, and you get the release sound. I hope we can hear it. So I hope you heard that. And when we put them back on, it does the closing sound. So let's try it again. Hopefully we'll hear it. And the closing sound. Come on. So that's pretty cool. Hopefully that was loud enough. If not, you know his Vader sounds when he does that. So it's cool that they put that in there, and we'll look at that, how they did that here in a second when I get this apart. So now I'm going to come back with this apart. Be right back. Okay, now I am back and these are apart. So the easiest thing to do here first is to look at the inside detail of the mask, as I was able to glean from shots of Revenge of the Sith, trying to get some of these components painted by hand. It was hard to get into some of these, and choices to make as far as what colors. Didn't want to overdo it, so just stuck with brass, bronze, silver, copper, and thought, well, maybe these are heat dispersion panels, and a lot of these metals can be used for that, for cooling agents. Like maybe they're very small conduits of cooling liquid going through copper tubes and bronze pads and so forth. all the black texture in here, I just basically went over with black, and then so it just didn't look like surface area plastic. Then again painted these individual components. There's the red lenses. Now here's the lens assembly. You can see the screws that hold that black visor in place. That just comes out, and the original visor was sandwiched in between that and the front of the helmet. So that made it much easier for us to put the lenses in and not have to really worry about cutting them too much into shape or maybe gluing them in or anything like that. So it really worked out that we just glued them together on their own, and then cut them to the best shape that we needed, and then sandwiched them in between the visor and the front helmet. So it worked really good. And just a little more paint job down here. Added in the metal grill and a little bit of screen mesh behind that. So kind of had to really take that slot out, unscrew the two screws on the side, pull this whole slot out, a little bit of hot glue that you can't really see to keep everything together. I'm getting a little too close, a little blurry. Yeah, that's better. And just slid it back in place and glued it in place, and I had to really kind of jam it up in there because there was extra material now that was in there that was preventing the surface or the bottoms here from being flush. So I actually had to kind of sand that down a little bit to get that out of the way, and then just kind of paint it over black again. But then again, here, since we're looking at the bottom of this, here are the magnet points that hold this thing together, and it is like you could have a person hanging from this and it would almost stay together. It was ridiculous how strong they are, and it's such a good solution to keep this thing together. And again, we were talking about how the thing makes this sound. Well, these pegs that are here match up to the holes in the top of the bottom piece to secure it, but this one over here has a little metal a little plate in it, a little trigger plate, and depending on the condition of that plate, it changes the status of the sound that Vader makes. So now what we did is we heard the helmet all together. We heard the sounds as you're pulling it off and putting it on. And then after you take the helmet off and it's just this, you hear the labored sound of Vader breathing as it was from Return of the Jedi. Very cool. I mean, don't know when you'd get around to doing that if you're trooping or cosplaying this. It's just cool that they did it. Yeah, that's enough of that one, I guess. So I'll just put him up this way so he doesn't. There you go. So let's look at this a little bit, and then we'll wrap this up because we're getting close. So again, as with Hasbro's Black Series, as I've always said with the helmets, they just come so close and they fall short from paint jobs and details on that. So I basically had to go in here, and although not perfect, it's a lot more elaborate than it was. Cleaned up some of because this was all molded black with the exception of that red tube down at the bottom, and these red tubes over here. And I went in and basically pulled these the breathing tube apparatuses off and covered them in that foil, and painted one bronze and covered the other one in the foil. Just, you know, maybe like a send and return kind of breathing thing. I don't know how it's supposed to work. Just it seemed cool to me to do it. Just detailing some panel work with painting, you know, the brass and the black tube for whatever reason, the black panel down here, enhancing some of the colors that were already there. I'll just turn this around here to get a better look at it. And that works. So along the channel here, just kind of kept that with a gold color, and these were already painted silver, but I painted silver over them just so they didn't look, again, like just surface plastic. Repainted the red light there, but I can see I bumped a little silver, but yeah, no biggie. Foiled the ends here, those little circle dots. Foiled the ends of the breathing apparatus and then painted them black inside. And then what really worked out is down here, the whole bottom part was supposed to be this metal mesh, but they were all black here on the sides, and you can see the screw holes in them. And I'm like, well, you're not really going to be, after I tell you what I've done next, but finishing it up and being done with it, you're not really going to go back into this, so I don't have to really get to the screw holes. So I just used that foil on them as well, and that foil really molded to the shape of the texture of the surface area pretty well. Looks pretty cool. The back neck piece, that was a challenge because I used I had to take it apart. I had to basically take this whole back piece apart and remove the plastic that they had there. It was like a textured plastic piece that went in here. And if you're going to be wearing this, that's kind of like uncomfortable. I mean, that plastic back on the back of your neck. So I took that off, and I basically just took a piece of black felt and shaped it. I had to go through a couple variations to match the curving and the contouring to match it, and then just Gorilla glued it in place, and it has maintained a soft, nice velvet or felt texture, and it looks very similar to references I've seen in the Lucasfilm Archives book of this. So yeah, that's most of the details I can think of right now on this, other than the final piece. And I'll flip this over here gently. This metal grill here I had replaced with, like I had mentioned earlier, with the mesh from the top of a air filter. The speaker that was making the sounds for all the Vader stuff was like inside here somewhere. It was just, I don't know, they had it mounted in there, and it just didn't sound loud enough to me. So I took the opportunity when I had unscrewed the details in here and took those pieces out, and so I was exposed to all the circuitry and the electronics in there. And I basically took the speaker out and moved it down and dropped it right in to the bottom there. So yeah, you can see it barely, if you know it's there, you can see it, but it makes a much better sound placement for the sound, especially if, where is the button? Yeah. So I don't know how that's coming across on the video, but you can definitely hear it much better. And then again, finishing off the gunmetal chrome down here in the paint job. Was a lot of trying to get a good smooth consistency to it, and so forth. Other than that, I don't really know what else to tell you about. And as far as what was done to this thing to get it to where we got it to. And yeah, so I will probably no longer own this after maybe a few days or a week or so after I bequeath and bestow this work to my brother, who was half of how we got it together. And it's also, he's very aware that I need to make room for my stuff, because I've got some other things coming, some more real Vader stuff coming, so it all works out. But I'm going to go ahead and pause it and put him back together and just finish up, and then we'll go. All right, and he's back together, as he should. So yeah, that's my my overview on the Black Series Vader helmet that got an extensive repaint and makeover. And I just decided to go. I wasn't really going to take too much time on this piece as opposed to some of the other pieces I have that, you know, I would necessarily devote more time to. But because this will probably no longer be in my possession, going to my brother, then I won't have it here. So I just wanted to give it a good documentation before it was gone. And it's, again, you know, not a bad piece by itself. If that's all, if it's the only Vader you have, it's pretty cool. But you know, if you have another Vader next to it, it's very obvious. But I have all the other Black Series helmets that I've done, and worked on those myself. But so this one was kind of going to be more like a late birthday present for my brother anyway. So that's that, and I hope you enjoyed the information on that. If you decide to do this for yourself, lots of spray paint, lots of it in big open areas because it requires it. I wasn't aware of how much paint this helmet took. It's crazy. So hopefully there are going to be some other notable Vaders to show off in the near future here, and that's all I'm saying about that. It'll be a surprise, and it'll be a cool surprise. But I will talk to you all later. See ya.